Alright, I can just start on in by introducing myself. Hey, I'm Chase. Chase Laking Murdy. I have two last names. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Anyways, so we're here to talk about the Myers-Briggs personality test. I'm sure you've heard of it. In our human relations class, we're talking about personality test, how it's been applied to, the job interview process. And even just getting to know a little bit about yourself. I think an important thing when going into it is being self-aware, because you can answer more accurately if you know yourself better, and you might get more accurate results that relate to you. But it can also help you become self-aware and learn a little bit about yourself, and maybe learn about some weaknesses that you didn't know you had, or some strengths that you just assumed everyone had. So one of my biggest traits that I already know without doing the test is that I am very indecisive. I feel like my indecisiveness could have skewed my results because I, sometimes fall right in the middle. And when I did the test previous to this assignment, I got the mediator, which is sort of the middle ground person. That could simply be because I'm indecisive. So a lot of the answers, I kind of answered right in the middle because I couldn't really pick either side. So when I did the Myers-Briggs test on another website, obviously it's going to change whatever website you're on. It's going to ask different questions. You'll probably have different results. But I got IN ? So for the most part, I agree. I'm very introverted. I do love socializing and connecting with people one-on-one, but I know that at the end of the day, when I'm tired, I'm drained, need to do some relaxing and recharge a little bit, I like to be by myself. I've always been that way. I've always been very independent. Now I find that when I'm in my own space, by myself, I can kind of collect my thoughts, get back into, who I am, because sometimes being around other people can be sort of overwhelming, and I can kind of lose my sense of self because I'm so lost in all of the commotion that is other people. And then my question marks were for either thinking or feeling. For this one, even I can't really decide. I mean, the test before has told me I'm an INFP, so that would mean I'm more on the feeling side, but I really see the good in both. So a thinker is more objective, and they step outside of their self to view the situation, and they're more analytical and distant and think more with their head rather than their heart. And that's something I do. I think it's really important to make decisions free of emotional bias. But I'm a super empathetic person, and when I see someone else in pain, I'm in pain, and I really, really understand the emotions of others, and I can really put myself in their shoes and see things from their perspective. So this one is a really hard one for me to pick because I am so much both. I'm very equal percent left brain and right brain in that regard. And then judging and perceiving. So from the little bit that we got about that, judgers have a clear plan and with clear steps. 1, 2, 3, goal. And that's how they accomplish things, which I really wish I could do. I try really hard to do that. I make a plan in my head, and I say, okay, if I space it out, whatever I'm doing, say I have an assignment, if I do this portion on this day, or I do this much by this day, I'll plan it out, but it never works out like that. The world is a very unpredictable place, and trying to plan is sometimes hard because things happen, or maybe I'm not in the mood to do that, or I don't have motivation to do that. It's hard for me to produce quality work if I don't feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing at that time. So it really depends on, now. It really depends on my mood almost. Still, I feel split 50-50 because I try to be one thing, but in reality, I'm more of a perceiver than a judger. So I'm going to say that I should stick with P over J. So in that sense, we've got INP. I agree with most of the things that, I've read about, the few things that didn't come out as inconclusive, but I can always see things from both sides. It's not often that I'm a one-sided person, and I think one distinct thing in one distinct way. Sometimes, for sure, I do have strong beliefs when it comes to some things, but for the most part, like, I'm really good at understanding both sides of the coin. So it's hard to say I'm one over the other. And I definitely think that, your personality type doesn't stay the same forever. As I get older, I feel myself changing, and I feel, even depending on the situation I'm in, I'm, might lean to more of a thinking, way to decide things, or a feeling way to decide things. And so it's hard to say if it really sticks. It's almost like, sometimes the zodiac signs, might have really, really broad characteristics that go along with that specific sign that could fit most people. So it's really whether or not you see yourself as those characteristics. So I know that one of my strengths, if I go with the INFP route, that's the mediator. And I definitely think that's a strength of mine, especially when working in a team or a group, is that I'm really good at seeing both sides. So if there's ever a conflict, I'm pretty good at, being able to find that middle ground and say, okay, so this is what you want to happen, this is your vision, how can we take part of that and make it work with this person's vision as well? And I do that with myself, not even between two people. With myself, I may have a very distinct vision of how I want things to go, what the end result should look like. But again, I want to make sure that other people have their input and their vision incorporated to whatever we're doing, because I acknowledge the fact that I am not the best and I don't know everything. So I think other people can bring a lot to a team, and you need to appreciate that. Even just, creative projects I've worked on with my friends, I know I would have never been able to do without their help and without their ideas. And there were times where I had to make compromises because, I felt it should be this way, but I wanted to take their advice because, it was good advice. So yeah, so that's one of my strengths in that sort of setting. This whole test, whether or not your results you feel like fit you, or whether they fit you perfectly, it doesn't really matter. I feel like this whole test and going through these questions really makes you think about your values and who you are as a person and how you make decisions. So I think it's very good for getting to know yourself and becoming more self-aware. And I think in that regard, it's not a horrible thing. You always have to take this kind of stuff with a grain of salt, because, this is someone's opinion of your opinions and how they think, what you think makes you as a person almost. So I think there is totally benefit to this. I would definitely not say that I would use this personality test to, determine whether or not someone should be hired, because that's irrelevant. But I think maybe it could be helpful for seeing what kind of jobs, fit that personality type. And you don't have to stick with those jobs, but what do those jobs require of a person? That's what's more important, not the job itself. So, if your personality type is more creative, and they're writers and actors and poets, and maybe you don't like any of those things, but you enjoy the creative process that goes into it, and you use your creativity in a way that works with your passions. So that's really important, because sometimes you don't know, usually you know what you're interested in, but sometimes you don't always know how your strengths could benefit your path of pursuing your passions. So that's also super helpful. So I wouldn't totally write off this whole personality thing. I love trying to figure out more about myself that I didn't know before. So on that note, I'm gonna say overall, I think it was pretty accurate to who I am, and I need to maybe get to know myself a little bit more so I'm not so indecisive. And yeah, cool.